Okay, so we're going to just look at example 5. So basically, just real quick, how do we deal with when we don't have an A term that's 1? So this one we have 2.
Same way you would do it if you weren't dealing with like squares. You just kind of you do it a lot of times. Then you like put the end over whatever that number is. Like I noticed when I was figuring out what was 25 or whatever, 19, whatever it was, that you can, if it's possible, square the A term as well.
Well, what you can do actually is you divide the coefficient of the A term. Divide everything by that A term. So if we have a problem that is 2x squared minus 5x plus 3 equals 0, if we divide everything by 2, then we can get rid of that coefficient on our first term, and it's easier to complete the square. So if we have 2x squared minus 5x plus 3, and we divide everything by 2, the left side and the right side is still going to be 0. We get x squared minus 5 halves x plus 3 halves. Okay, so equals 0. It's like, well, what do we do now? First things first, we want to simplify this so we can complete the square. So we have to move that 3 halves to the right, because then we get x squared minus 5 halves x equals negative 3 halves. And by doing that, we can figure out what our C term needs to be, and then go from there. So I have x squared minus 5 halves x equals negative 3 halves. Everybody good with that?
Yeah. I think so. Sure.
Okay. Yeah, so I just moved that C term to the right. And now, if we have x squared minus 5x, how do we find our C term? What's our first step?
Minus 5x.
5 halves x.
Okay.
Yeah.
You take the half of 5x and square it.
Right, exactly. And we've already figured out what half of 5x is.
5/4.
5/4, right. So then we get x squared minus 5 halves x. And what is 5/4 squared?
25/16.
Exactly. Plus 25/16 equals negative 3 halves plus 25/16. Because what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So we added that 25/16 to each side to complete that square. Okay, so now how would we factor that out? What is the factorization of x squared minus 5 halves x plus 25/16? If we know that the square root of 25/16 is 5/4. Open x plus or minus something, close, open x plus or minus the same something, close.
X minus 5/4 squared
Exactly.
equals 1/16.
Equals 1/16? Because you did, you changed it, yeah, and that's exactly right. Because you added negative 3 halves plus 25/16. Okay, so now we do the same thing. We got to take the square root.
X plus something squared. 5/4.
So it's going to be x minus, because we have x minus 5/4. So we have x minus 5/4 equals, what is the square root of 1/16?
1/4.
Yep, exactly. You take the square root of your numerator, and then you take your square root of your denominator. So that's plus or minus. So now we have x minus 5/4 equals 1/4, and we have x minus 5/4 equals negative 1/4. So the first one, x minus 5/4 equals 1/4. We add that to the other side, so we get x equals 6/4, which is the same as 3/2. So we have 3/2 as an answer. And what is x? We have to subtract that x plus 5/4 from the right side.
I am really lost.
Okay. Okay, let me just finish this, then we'll go back. So we have x minus 5/4 equals 1/4. Then we move that 5/4 over and we add it. We get 6/4. And then we have x plus 5/4 equals negative 1/4. So we have to subtract it. And that equals 4/4 or 1. So our answers are actually 3/2 and 1. So Nathan, where did you get lost?
Like x minus 5/4 squared.
Okay, so we have x minus 5/4 squared equals 1/16.
Why does it equal 1/16?
Because it equals 1/16 because we had negative 3/2 plus 25/16. And what we did was we turned that negative 3/2 into 16ths.
Negative 3/2 into 16.
So we multiply the numerator and the denominator by 8 to get our denominator to be a 16. So you have negative 24/16 plus 25/16. And negative 24 plus 25 is 1, and your denominator stays the same. So that's how you end up with 1/16.
Okay.
All right.
Attention, I am Mrs. Gold.
So if we have an equation that does not have a denominator, does not have a equals 0 on the right, that's all right. You can still, if you have something, you just add it or subtract that last term to the right side. It's totally fine.
Do you have to divide that side by 2?
Wait, let's finish this one first before we move on to another problem. Okay.
We have x minus 5/4 squared equals 1/16.
Yes, so we have x minus 5/4 squared equals 1/16. Then we take the square root of each side. So if we have, what is the square root of x minus 5/4 squared?
5/2, or just x minus 5/4.
Right, x minus 5/4 equals, then you take the square root of 1/16. So square root of your numerator over the square root of your denominator.
1/4.
1/4, right. So then plus or minus 1/4. So then we set up each problem. We have x minus 5/4 equals 1/4. And x minus 5/4 equals negative 1/4. And then when you solve those, x minus 5/4, when you move that 5/4 over, it becomes a positive, so you end up with 6/4. And then if you have x minus 5/4 equals negative 1/4, you have 5/4 minus 1/4, which gives you 4/4 or 1. So then you have an answer of 6/4 or 3/2 if you reduce it, and 1. And that's how you get your answers.
Okay.
So you'll do some more of these.
Do you want
Okay, Chris, what was your question?
My question was initially, at the very beginning, you have 2x squared minus 5x plus 3 equals 0.
Yeah.
If you had it, for example, equals 4, would you have to divide the 4 by 2 also?
Yes, you would.
Okay.
Yep, you divide each side by that too. Okay. And then the last example we're going to do is example 6, which is dealing with imaginary numbers. So example 6 says solve. We have x squared plus 4x plus 11 equals 0. Okay, so first things first, we have to, that is not a perfect square. Our C term is an 11. That's not a perfect square. So we have to move that 11 to the right. So you get x squared plus 4x equals negative 11. Okay, so what is our C term going to be if we have x squared plus 4x?
Okay, 4.
It's going to be 4, right. It's going to be 4 because half of your B term is 2, square that is 4. So we have x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals negative 11 plus 4. So if we add that 4 to the left, we have to add it to the right.
No, I see what you're doing.
Yeah, so now let's take care of this. So what is the factorization of x squared plus 4x plus 4?
X plus 2 squared.
Correct. Equals negative 11 plus 4 gives us negative 7. Okay, we take the square root of each side. The left we get x plus 2. The right we get plus or minus the square root of negative 7.
Wait, I thought it was 11.
We had negative 11 plus 4. You can't forget to add that 4 to the right side too.
What do you
When you're completing,
there should be x plus 4, or x.
you have x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals negative 11 plus 4. Because you added that 4 to your C term as your C term, but if you add it to the left, you also have to add it to the right. Just like we've been doing. Okay, so we still get that negative 7. So we take the square root of negative 7. So now we have x plus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of negative 7. Okay, and how do we deal with that? Well, we have x plus 2, and we pull out that negative 1, it becomes an I. X plus 2 equals plus or minus I square root 7. And then we have to move that 2 over, so we have our x equals negative 2 plus or minus I square root 7.
Negative 7, right?
No, it's under the radical, it's 7 now because you pulled out the I. You pulled out the negative 1, and when you take the square root of negative 1, it's the imaginary number I.
So you get x plus 2, I square root 7.
X equals, so you have x plus 2 equals plus or minus I square root of 7. And then you move the 2 over and you get x equals negative 2 plus or minus I square root 7.
Okay.
Alright. So, let's do another one of those. Okay. So this time the problem is going to be x squared plus 6x plus 13 equals 0. Now, we know that 13 is not a perfect square. So we have to move it over to the right. So we get x squared plus 6x equals negative 13. Everybody agreed? Okay. So now let's complete the square on the left side. We have x squared plus 6x. What do we need to do for our C term? How do we complete the square if it's x squared plus 6x? We half b and then square it. So So what is half of b if it's 6x and then squared? Anastasia, what did you get?
Does x equal 1?
Yeah, x is, well, is x equal 1? That's, no, it does not. Okay, so can somebody please tell me what it is to complete the square? X squared plus 6x plus what?
9 equals negative 13 plus 9.
Correct. X squared plus 6x plus 9 equals negative 13 plus 9, which is negative 4. Okay, so we have a negative on that right side. So what is the factorization of x squared plus 6x plus 9?
X minus 3 squared equals negative 4.
We have all plus signs though, so you're right except for your sign.
What?
So we have x squared plus 6x plus 9. So what is our sign going to be in our factorization?
It's not a positive 9 though.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because 3 times 3 is 9. So we have x plus 3 squared equals negative 4. Now we take the square root of each side, and what does that give us? X plus 3 squared, take the square root of that, we get... Anastasia, can you tell me?
X plus 3, right?
Yeah, we're just taking the square root of x plus 3 squared equals negative 4. Now we have to do plus or minus the square root of negative 4. And what happens when we have plus or minus square root negative 4? What does that become when we take the square root of it?
Isn't it?
Not negative 2. It's
Plus or
2.
minus 2 square root 2? Something like that.
So we have x plus 3 equals plus or minus. Now if we have the square root of negative 4,
You have to pull out an I.
you pull out an I,
I plus or minus 4, or square root 4.
and now we have a square root 4. And can you take the square root of that?
Yeah, so it'd be I plus or minus 2 radical 2.
Well, you have x plus 3 equals plus or minus 2i. If you take out the I, you can write it as 2i.
Oh.
Because that plus or minus is in front of everything. So it's plus or minus 2i, which is the same thing as square root of negative 4. So now we have x plus 3 equals plus or minus 2i. We have to move that 3 to the right. So we have x equals negative 3 plus or minus 2i. And that's, and radical negative 4 is the same thing as 2i. So our answer is x equals negative 3 plus or minus 2i. And that's as far as you need to take it. And that is your answer.
Lesson 6-4-3.
Yep. So you're doing page 311, 32 through 46 even.
34. 32. Oh. 32.
32 through 46 even.
Oh, I thought you said 36. I was getting hopeful.
That was called wishful thinking. Okay, so these are solving each equation by completing the square. So some of them are imaginary, some of them are not, some of them have coefficients, some of them do not, some of them are fractions, some of them are not.
32 through 40.
32 through 40.